Let me go ahead and check. It says we're live.
Hello. Are we live?
And the answer is yes, we are. Awesome.
Good.
Alright, hello everyone, Ace here. Welcome to today's live stream. I'm joined today with returning guest, Alpharius.
Hello.
Welcome, Alpharius. And today we are back with some more Terror of Godzilla. This is the 6th and final issue of the series, so... yeah, and for those who aren't aware, this comic is essentially a comic book adaptation of Godzilla 1984, aka Godzilla 1985, aka Return of Godzilla. There's a lot of different names to this film because there's a couple different edits of it, so...
Makes sense then.
Ora says, Gojira? Gojira! Seed says, hey, Lace, Gojira. Ora says, and of course the stream is about to begin and ad block betrays me. Apex says, Alpharius, yes. Alright. So yeah, this is Dark Horse Comics from the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, or early 90s. Let's see what it says. No, it's actually late 90s. It looks like it might have been late 90s that this comic came out, but the film, of course, itself came out in the mid-80s.
Ah. Okay, so it took some time for the comic to develop.
Yeah. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's actually, for the sake of it, to compare to modern Star Wars, see how many people had to read the plot of this comic before it became publicly available. So you have the writer and illustrator. Then you have the English version, which will actually be nice to, I guess, the Disney High Republic Star Wars, and say both of these guys had to read the plot, so that would be 3 people, a letterer, which would be 4 people, and then an editor, so 5 people total for a comic that had to be translated.
Oh my god.
Compare this, if you will, to the 11 people that have to read the plot of a typical High Republic comic before it becomes publicly available. And it doesn't have to be.
That's just job bloat at its finest.
Paul says, wow, is that Detroit? It is supposed to be Tokyo, but Tokyo after Godzilla wrecked it, basically. Cole Summers says...
no better than Detroit.
Yeah. Yep, yes it is. Cole Summers says, hey, Lace, good to catch you live. Siege is laughing. All right. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Oh, yeah, also, one of the previous issues... okay, so how much are you familiar with the plot of Godzilla 1984?
Not too much. I just know Godzilla goes to Tokyo and blows it up.
Well, yeah. All right, so... all right, so some of the plot that's been established is that they're doing the whole thing of dinosaurs and whatnot evolved eventually into birds. So because birds are a descendant of an evolutionary descendant of Godzilla, he actually reacts to birds chirping and stuff like that, and starts following him, kind of like a migration pattern.
Interesting, actually.
So that's their little. So that has to deal with their little plan here, and then apparently a nuke got launched at Tokyo, but the nuke was destroyed with another nuke in space before it hit Tokyo.
What the?
It's the Cold War.
Ah, that explains it.
And people thought it was going. And the people that launched the nuke thought it was going to kill Godzilla. Yeah, on that subject, Japan, of course, has the Super X, which was this flying robot, or flying VTOL thing, that did actually put up a good fight against Godzilla for a while, and actually essentially had missiles that could shut down a nuclear reaction. So they basically fired those into the mouth and were able to temporarily disable Godzilla. But because the nukes went off in space overhead... the radiation from that revived him, and he ended up taking out the Super X.
Oh. Okay.
So a fail all around.
Yeah, that's some poor communication right there.
Well, that's what happens when you have 3 separate countries with competing interests, all doing their own little plans.
Yeah.
Anyways, Tokyo lies in burning ruins. The dead litter the streets. The dying hold up in shattered remains of once great structures. No nuclear weapon could have caused more destruction or taken a greater toll, though a nuclear bomb perhaps may have been quicker, more merciful. End.
And the ravages of Godzilla.
Boom.
So who should we voice?
Well, your call on which one you'd prefer, Goro or... I forget her name. It's been a while since I've read this. Because we keep doing the High Republics in between this.
I think... There we go. I went to the next panel. It's Naoko.
Oh, Naoko. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I think I'll voice her.
Okay.
Oro, you risk your own life to save me.
I'm alright, but we can't stay here.
I guess I haven't been very nice to you.
There's no need for that, Naoko. The way I behaved... You have every right to hate me. But I hope you don't. I apologize for how I acted earlier. Oh yeah, this guy's a journalist and he does typical journalist things. In his case, her brother was lost at sea. He found her brother. The government decided to admittedly hide the information of her brother surviving because of Godzilla. And he basically tipped her off that the brother's alive just so he could get a news story out. And took photos of them right as they're reunited. And all that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Siege says, page 2, Japanese Chad saves his lady, apologizes without sounding like a cuck. Good start. Fair
Indeed.
enough. Apparently he's won her over, too.
Apparently. They're looking at each other in the eyes. That can only mean one thing.
Thumb.
Oh no! Godzilla!
Come on. They were telling people to take shelter in the subway tunnels. If we can find an entrance to one, we might be safe.
It's no good! Everything's destroyed! I don't even know which street we're on anymore.
Stop. Rest. A minute.
My brother and the professor should have reached Oshima Island by now.
Yes, if everything was ready for the professor's plan, we should be seeing the effects of it soon.
If the plan works.
I'm sure the plan will succeed. Professor Hayashida knows more about Godzilla than anyone. Ugh. Yeah, that's not an image you want to have. A giant 400-foot-tall monster staring down explicitly at you.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of some of those horror edits of Godzilla where they show images of from Godzilla Raids Again of all things. That has been edited a little bit, but not that much. Anyways. Get out of here! Naoko, go! Run!
But Goro, I can't leave you! Look out!
No!
No! Godzilla stopped!
Swish! Dum.
The professor's plan is working! He was right about Godzilla being attracted to high-frequency sound. Godzilla's headed for Mount Mihara on Oshima Island.
Tokyo saved! We did it, Patrick. We saved the city.
We saved the city. Yeah. Well, there are still people there, I guess.
Yes. Especially that next panel really shows how much the Tokyo's been saved.
Yeah.
Let's see. Adam says, so this is a retelling of Godzilla 1986. Cool. Yeah, yes it is. She says, if only all women were that sane. Cole says, lunch spotted. Paul says, I love a happy ending. I have a feeling this is going to be a very short comic, I will admit, because, well, there is a lot of panels. But there's not too much, if you're familiar with the film, there's not too much left to the story there. But we do get some ads, apparently, in the meantime. Gunsmith Cats. Bean Bandit by Kenichi Sonata. Okay. On sale January through June. Rallies in the pit and once back in the race. I'm
You
now...
think that sale's still going on?
Huh?
You think that sale's still going on?
They did say January through June. They didn't say which January and which June.
Exactly.
Aliens Apocalypse, the Destroying Angels. In the distant future, in the deep reaches of space, the truth is what you will fear the most. I'm now curious about this one, too.
Indeed.
Alright. So more images of the absolute state of Tokyo after all it's been through.
Yeah, I don't think it's safe to call that a city anymore. Well, there are still emergency services, it looks like, so...
Yep.
That's impressive.
It is indeed. Alright, you want to voice the Prime Minister, or should I?
I'll voice him, sure.
And I guess I get to voice the guy on the radio. Prime Minister, Godzilla is leaving the city. He's heading for the volcano on Oshima Island.
Everything's in your hands now, Professor.
Oshima Island. Atop Mount Mihara, a giant antenna beams a guiding ultrasound sound wave toward Godzilla. Paul says mostly peaceful Godzilla incident.
So, you want to voice the Professor, or should I?
Yeah, voice him, why not? That sound. He's here. Thum. 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 That's it, Godzilla. Keep on right up to the rim of the crater.
I'm ready to detonate the charges, Professor!
Not yet, Mr. Akamura. Don't jump the gun. Let Godzilla get all the way to the top. Now, Mr. Okamura, hit the switch!
Hey, Godzilla!
Mr. Vibe Check says, just got here, come on Ace, do a racial stereotype voice. I could, but I'm trying to voice the professor as close as he sounded in the English dub of the movie, so... Ura says, Godzilla is population control for Japan, just saying. I think Japan's got population control pretty well covered at this point.
Yeah, you know? Well, this was in the 80s, so that's when they were actually thriving.
Fair point. Adam Wolford donates $5 saying, look, Patrick, we saved the city! These last 4 blocks are undamaged! Oh, look, our favorite sushi bar is just fine. It all worked out, Patrick. Mr. Vibe Chick says, whitest Asian man.
Listen, it's manga, or... Is this manga or a comic? I have a hard time
I'm pretty
telling.
sure since this is Dark Horse and this is... Technically, I would say this is still a comic. It might have been made. It might have been originally made in Japan, but I'm pretty sure this still counts as a comic.
Manga illustrated comic. That sounds better.
Yeah, that works.
And
All
Japan,
right.
they like.
Oh, he falls all the way in right then and there.
Oh. Yeah, he's cooked. Literally.
Well, it doesn't kill him. If you're familiar with the lore, what it does is he does get trapped in the volcano, but it never kills him. In fact, they have to set up a Godzilla early warning detection system with several states of alert and all that, just in case he does break out, which he does in Godzilla vs. Biollante from 1989. And the plot of that film is very, very bonkers.
Isn't it like the cells from some girl who gets turned into a plant or something? And that plant is giant and evil, and then Godzilla fights it?
Kinda? But it gets way weirder than that. So, alright, so what happens? And so part of it is you have these two different competing terrorist organizations. A Middle Eastern terrorist organization and an American terrorist organization.
Okay, that's one heck of a start.
The American group wants to take Godzilla's cells from the wreckage of Tokyo and use them to make weapons that can destroy nuclear warheads, which would be kind of a big deal in the Cold War, obviously.
Yeah, actually.
The Middle Eastern terrorist group wants to use the Godzilla cells, mix them with crop plants, so that they can grow wheat and stuff like that in the desert.
Okay.
The professor is briefly working for the Middle Eastern terrorist group, but an explosion kills his daughter, who was holding a flower, and so he decides to implant his daughter's cells into the cells of the plant to try to keep his daughter alive that way, kinda. Or at least her soul alive or something.
Okay.
And his plant at one point gets damaged a few years later, so he decides to mix the plant cells again with Godzilla cells, which is what creates Biollante.
Oh. Okay. That's interesting.
So you're not entirely wrong about it having the cells of a girl in it. It's kind of weird, though. Like I said, it's kind of one of those really weird, have-to-be-explained sort of situations. There's a lot of other weird plots, like the fact that you have a teenage psychic girl that battles Godzilla with her mind at one point in the film.
What the... Okay.
Yeah, so there's that. There's the Super X2 that they introduced, which... Okay, that's a cool idea. The basic idea is it has a giant mirror made of diamonds, so whenever Godzilla uses his breath on it, it reflects it right back at him.
That is actually pretty cool. Huh.
Alright, but yeah, it's a very, very weird and entertaining film, especially if you're watching the English dub.
Oh boy.
Some of the lines suffer from a classic case of phrasing. Some of the... There's also some of the effects can be a little bit silly too. There's a lot of jokes that can be made about... There's a lot of Star Trek memes that can be made out of the Super X scenes, considering how they basically have a Star Trek bridge in which they control the Super X from.
Oh?
But anyways. Mr. Vibecheck says, manga is comic, you nerd. Or it says, Dark Horse Manga Division. Mr. Vibecheck, American terrorists never. Lars says, the Discord link does not work. Okay, I'm going to... I'm actually going to go ahead and provide a new Discord link here just to fix that. But yeah, once that's done, we'll go ahead and continue on. Assuming that I Oh, here we go. So yeah, like I said, I'll go ahead and get that done, and then... But yeah, like I said, Godzilla vs. Biollante, definitely an entertaining film worth looking at.
Sounds like it.
A lot of people consider it to be, unironically, one of the best ones from the Heisei era.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially, I think there was a poll in Japan where they actually voted it as being the best Godzilla film. I don't really think that poll is that accurate. I think there are better Godzilla films, to be honest, but to each his own. That's one thing about Godzilla, is that one thing I found from the fandom is everyone... The fandom is so divided, is basically everyone has their own opinion on what is the best and worst Godzilla films. Most people agree that it's Godzilla's Revenge is the worst. With regards to the best, a lot of people, though not all of them, clearly think that the very first one was the best. -1's also pretty good. Anyways, there's the Discord link for you guys.
You know what? Actually, what is Godzilla's Revenge? I'm not all that aware of it.
Okay, so Godzilla's Revenge is a Showa-era film that came out 1969, 1970, I think. I think it was 1970. And how to start with it? Okay, so why it's the worst Godzilla film, even if you include Godzilla 98.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's worse? It gets worse?
Yes. It is... In terms of the regular mainline Godzilla films, with the exception of Bambi Meets Godzilla, it is the shortest Godzilla film.
Huh.
But my god, it's less than an hour long, but by god, does it feel like it takes forever.
Oh god.
The reason why, okay, so the plot is not even about Godzilla per se, although he's technically in it. But here's how. It's about a kid that's a Godzilla fan that constantly daydreams about Godzilla and about being on Monster Island.
It's a horrible idea.
Almost all of the Godzilla footage is stock footage from previous films.
Oh my god.
And not even ones that are not, and the fights aren't even the ones that people remember him particularly well for. Like, the fights include Godzilla versus Ebra, or the sea monster. Ebra meaning is Japanese for giant shrimp.
God.
You can imagine how one-sided that one was. And then the other one was was the fight from Son of Godzilla, where he fights a giant spider.
Okay, that doesn't sound too terrible.
It's not, but it's also cut down from it, and even in comparison to the original, you just watch Son of Godzilla, it's the better movie, in all honesty.
Okay.
There is one monster called Gabra that gets introduced, which is supposed to be this kid, which is named after the kid's bully. And it's supposed to be just him daydreaming about his bully being a monster.
I suppose that's not too terrible.
But his pal that he runs around with on Monster Island is Minya, Godzilla's son.
Oh.
Who they gave a voice.
Oh no.
And
no.
He can also change size, so he goes from being human size to being Godzilla size. Well, as close to Godzilla size as a baby Godzilla can get, but I digress.
Yeah, that's a terrible idea. Wow. Then
there's some of the stupidity that involves the plot of Son of Godzilla on top of that, like the fact that part of the subplot, a side plot, is some bank robbers that decide to hide out, I guess, at the kid's house. They end up kidnapping him and stuff him into the trunk of their car. And while he's tied up in the trunk of their car, he starts daydreaming. Going, what would Godzilla do in this situation?
What were they thinking when they made that movie?
He even there's a point where he actually starts outsmarting them, like it's Home Alone, except not good, unlike Home Alone.
Oh my god.
And he ends up getting a fire extinguisher and imagines himself like Godzilla using his atomic breath as he uses the fire extinguisher on the two robbers.
Oh.
He then, and at the very end of the film, he actually teams up with the bullies and just becomes another bully. So, a winning moral for the film.
What was
I know.
Why?
Like I said, it's the worst Godzilla film of all time.
You're... Fuck. Hard to argue with that.
The good news... Mr. Vibecheck says, so it's a movie about an autistic kid getting abducted. Unironically. Yes.
Oh my god. And I'm there's rare. I mean, that's just. I feel speechless.
There are movies. Yeah, it's kind of hard to top that for worst Godzilla movies. There are weirder Godzilla movies. In fact, there was one I think that came out the year after called Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, where he fights a pollution-based monster.
That's a planet. My god.
But at least that one was wild and trippy enough that it becomes entertaining in its own way. Godzilla literally gains the power to fly.
Oh. Well, that's actually kind of interesting.
The way he does it is he turns around and uses his atomic breath facing downward until it lifts him up into the air.
Well, that still sounds less silly than him drop kicking.
I don't know. That one's pretty high up there.
True.
Anyways, so let's go ahead and...
Oh, right, yeah.
On a helicopter nearing Oshima Island. The plan worked. We did it! We did it! Whoop, whoop.
Look! My brother and Professor Hayashida are okay!
Prime Minister, it's over.
Yes. Just yes.
He even does a Giga Chad pose immediately after. Or it says, respect the Godzilla kicked. Yeah, but I'm probably going to show Alpharius here the scene from Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, because like I said, the whole movie's a trip, too.
Fair enough.
But anyways, from the journal of Professor K. Hayashida. And so, at last, Godzilla was sent back into the belly of the earth. The news flashed around the world, Godzilla is dead, and many, no doubt, slept easier after that. But to those of us who stood on the slopes of Mount Mahara that day and watched as Godzilla was slowly buried beneath the flood of molten rock, his cries did not sound like those of a dying beast. Rather, they conveyed a sense of sadness, a regret that his freedom should be so brief. For all the destruction he caused, Godzilla acted only according to his instincts. In that sense, he is beyond good or evil, as we would define it. And I believe all those who were witness to Godzilla's atonement realized this fact, and, to some extent, were also saddened. To this day, I can still hear the echo of those screams, but in them I now hear something else, a deeper note. Beyond the sadness, I hear a threat. A threat that one day, as civilization revels in its own advances, even as it destroys the balance of the world, Godzilla may again rise up from the depths and challenge mankind for possession of the world. And my deepest fear is that man in his arrogance will not heed the reality of that threat, that Godzilla will not rest in peace. The end.
Well, that's a genuinely chilling note to end on.
Yes!
Holy crap.
It is fitting with the film, to some degree. It is also fitting with the feeling of the original Godzilla movie from 1954.
Holy crap.
That was a good ending.
Uh-huh. That's amazing.
I was actually surprised that I was surprised that there was this much to it, because again, I've seen the film. I've seen the film, and I was not. And yeah, there's not a whole lot much left plot wise, but they are able to still do a pretty good job of making this final issue seem important.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Paul Schlock says the true monster, man. That is also, to be fair, a reoccurring theme in the film.
Yeah. That's kind of a theme with Godzilla's whole story in general, isn't it?
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Sometimes it's not man. To be fair, though, it's not always man. Sometimes it's aliens.
Like Ghidorah.
I mean, Ghidorah, Planet X, the plot of Destroy All Monsters, the plot of Godzilla vs. Gigan. Now that I think about it, you could even technically argue in the case of Godzilla vs. Megalon to some degrees, because the plot there is that... the one group of aliens did actually send Gigan again, that they had as their monster, but Megalon comes from basically, if I remember correctly, the plot is that Atlantis apparently still exists and is just a subterranean civilization. But and so they decide to attack the people on the surface of the Earth with Megalon.
I see.
Then there are, of course, the two Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla films, which are also both about aliens. And then there's Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla and Godzilla Final. There's a lot of Godzilla films where aliens are the real villain.
Oh. Yeah, I guess that is the secondary theme to humans being the villain. It's those damn aliens.
What if the Godzilla franchise was secretly the Alex Jones of film franchises?
You say that. It's not the most out-of-pocket thing, I don't think.
Or it says, we either have super monsters or very human-looking aliens, though they do use camouflage for that. Yes, that is true. Godzilla vs. Gigan, the aliens were actually giant cockroaches.
Yeah. I say kill them all.
That just took the form of humans. And in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, the aliens were ape people. But again, took the disguise of humans. It's not always the case, though. Super Godzilla, the video game, the aliens genuinely looked alien, so... Oh, and also Godzilla Final Wars, they did the whole disguise as human thing as well, now that I think about it.
Now I'm suddenly wondering if there's ever been a Godzilla vs. Dragon Ball story where he fights a Monkey Saiyan.
Adam says to me, no, it's the Lost City of Mu. Now that I think about it, maybe what it is, maybe that's an English translation thing, because I think in the dub it's supposed to be Atlantis, and it might just be the Lost City of Mu in the Japanese dub or something. Who knows? But anyways, let's go ahead and see what's at the very end of this comic. So we have the finish line here. Talking about the water below, okay. Or world below. Showing off some of the comics that are coming up. Let's see what else we've got. Joe Kuber's World of Cartooning. It's smashing. A new series of correspondence courses on comic book art. So if you want to learn how to draw comic books, here you go, apparently. Mobile Police Pat Labor Basic Training. Visual graphic novel. When terrorists get their hands on military mecha, The Pat Labor Squad fights fire with fire. God, there's another Future Cop comic. Oh no. Basically what this is.
Oh no.
I love Future Cop, so I'm now very, very curious. Alright, and so yeah, we got that. So there's also Eat Man Second Course. Graphic novel, okay. Japan's hungriest hero is back for seconds. I'm sure Goku is back for seconds.
Yeah.
The return of Urusei Yatsura. Ran attacks. She's cute, sweet, and she wants Lum dead. Planet Earth isn't big enough for them both. Alright. So, some potential stuff for later if we decide to go into it. And then, the galaxy's not big enough for both of them. Vader versus Fett. Alright. Is this going to be a comic or a actual book? I'm curious. Anyways, that is the end of this comic book. So, what are your thoughts?
That was pretty good.
Agreed. It is this is a pretty easy recommendation as far as comics are concerned. Fun read. This one, like I said, I wasn't expecting that much because granted, it is supposed to be the finale. On the other hand, like I said, having watched the film, I knew not a whole lot happened by this point in the story. At least in terms of what was left of it. But they still managed to actually make it pretty good. Good writing can really absolutely make that landing stick, and this is definitely a good example of that.
That's a fact.
So yeah, is there anything else that you would like to add on that?
Nothing I can think of.
Yeah, definitely a good recommendation. Definitely a series worth reading. It was a lot of fun. Even if you've seen, of course, the film, still a recommendation as far as I'm concerned. We're probably going to go into... Let's see what's next week as well as far as comics, because I don't know if they're going to be coming out with another High Republic next week or not. Who knows? If not, then I guess we'll be getting into some more Star Wars X-Wing or something. I know we're getting close to the end of that. So yeah, I think we are... Aura says to add, we need more Godzilla. You know, that can be achieved. There are other Godzilla comic book series out there. There's a couple.
Really?
Yep. The very first comics I actually ever read, now that I think about it, happened to be Godzilla comics that came out in the late 90s. Not this series, but it was a different series. But anyways, so yeah, definitely something I'd like to get more into. Of course, once the High Republic series finally ends, I've got some very, very obscure video game comics to go over. I think we'll be interested to see when we get to them.
That's fair, yeah.
All right, but anyways, I think this is a good stopping point. So yeah, Alpharius, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Been a pleasure being here.
Yep. And we both hope to see you all again soon. Until then, take care.